our biggest AI deployment is, random forest modeling against project performance data. So ironically, it's an AI project about projects, if that makes any sense. So the Crow's Nest product is a SaaS solution that we rolled out. And of course, the challenge with that is anything around machine learning, data accuracy, lots of parallel testing. And then even then, it's churning out. It takes some use case. You've got to use the data. So in a nutshell, the way that the product works, just so people have context, is it's a lot like a Google Maps or a Waze, but it's for large enterprise programs, right? You have a start and you have a destination. And of course, it's aware of all of the things that need to occur in that journey along the way. And as projects start to unfold, there's obstacles, right? You have to take the frontage road, or, there's, quote, potholes in your project, so to speak, metaphorically speaking. And so the solution is meant to connect to your major project management systems like a Monday.com or an Asana or Microsoft Enterprise. That's immaterial. But then kind of like your navigator on your mobile device in your car, right? Your car is the project. You're going to have this Crow's Nest SaaS app that's watching everything that's going on with the drive around it, right? So it is a separate solution. It's not another Monday.com or another Asana.com, right? People don't change their project management solution. The car they're driving is the car they're driving. We're just simply providing the navigator. What was interesting about those models is, ironically, harmonizing the data, recognizing key performance metrics, due dates, assignees, all of that stuff's rudimentary and not a problem. It's the modeling of predicting the future that wasn't an issue as far as mathematics are concerned, right? It's a combination of, say, a Monte Carlo simulation, past behavior can kind of give you a trend into future behavior. If you're always finishing 8 out of 10 work products every 2 weeks in a sprint, probably going to finish 8 out of 10 going forward, and you could extrapolate. And the model was great at this. What we ran into was the humanity of the users. They were like, no way we're green. We've been green for 3 weeks. There's no way you're predicting red for next week. How is that even possible? Now, in the algorithms, it knows you have 2x the amount of work. There's unsigned subcontractor contracts. There's blockers and things that it knows about in future time slices. It's predictive, right? It's not just, hey, we're green status today, like so many projects might be. It knows, like kind of Thelma and Louise, we're headed for the cliff, right? And humans don't do that. Instead of working with the algorithm, it becomes, you have to prove that your system is telling a truth, right? And so everybody questions the data and they get frustrated, they doubt it, and they throw it away. And I don't blame them. I mean, I've done that. I was an early adopter of the actual Waze product when I was driving around on the East Coast, and I'd always taken a certain route out of Manhattan to get back up the coast and head towards Boston, because that was my working commute back in the day. And I had it memorized. I'm like, why is it taking me on the frontage roads and into the surface streets? That's ridiculous. Waze is wrong. AI is wrong. Sure enough, on that, then I'd done the route. There's 3 different routes you can take out of Manhattan, and I knew them all, and this wasn't one of them. This was some 4th crazy route that got me on surface streets. I'm like, heck no, I'm not doing that. Well, to my peril, because there was an accident spread across lanes, and I was stuck there for 2.5 hours going nowhere. Had I just taken the frontage road and the surface streets, it was informing me. Now, what I liked about it was it wasn't commanding me, right? I had free will at all times, but it was informing me. Now, I've learned to trust the data. So in a nutshell, where I'm going with this is people will have to trust the data. Now, does the data, can it improve? Absolutely. For those of us who have used these navigator softwares like Waze or Google Maps, the destination estimation's gotten better and better and better. It used to be, oh, you'll be there in 20 minutes. Like, I got there in 5. You were wrong, right? So our estimator models are getting better and better. But again, I think adoption and willingness to even use it and participate with feedback so it can continue to learn has been a factor. And so ironically, the failure of that project is if we have fewer adopters or fewer people contributing to its learning and feedback, that means that we have a longer stretch of making it a better product. I will pivot a little bit. So the one thing that Corbeau does, in addition to being a technology company, it's a technology for projects. And because of that, we have lots of seasoned professionals that know how to transform project work into project success, getting valuable outcomes, helping with creating great habits and opening up communication so that folks can make informed decisions and keep project momentum going. So in general, we've had a higher success rate because of our consultants. And so we do project success consulting. I think in that regard, getting clients to adopt an AI culture has been a huge challenge. And that's not a bad thing. You have rapid adopters and the curious folks that are techie, and they're all about trying out the latest flavor of Gemini 3.1 and comparing it against Sonnet and some of Claude's products just to see how they benchmark against one another. And you have folks that are there's no way AI can replace a human. Humanity is where the value's at. I'm not going to waste my time. It's just a chat thing, and I can use that when I need it. It doesn't need to be some agentic replacement of our workforce. So, and those two dichotomies can exist on one team, in one project management office or one executive team. And either one of them is necessarily wrong. But when one goes in to implement, we'll say agentic AI to automate simple SOPs, right? So maybe it's the weekly status reporting is auto-compiled, so you don't have to go around asking folks what's going on. Or maybe it auto sends out status reports so that you can have great stand-ups in the morning instead of having to manually put them together, or even log in and try to compile a pre-built or filtered report. That's oversimplifying, but there's all kinds of mechanical things that you can automate with an AI because it's smart enough to kind of understand what's going on in context and simplify our lives so that, in the old days, an 8-hour workday, a lot of my time or project manager time or team member time could have been spent doing administrative, researching, looking up emails, getting on Google, compiling PowerPoints and team meeting agendas, getting on people's calendars, all of that stuff. Now you can automate a lot of that stuff to your ease, and that frees up your 8-hour day to be a critical thinker, a full-time creator. We're not necessarily distracted by the mechanical things that had to happen as much. It still has to happen, but it's simplified. Getting people to feel comfortable looking at that slice of their day that was all mechanical and really look at, man, I do this all the time. Why can't I automate it? That's not how we're natively taught to think, right? As team members, as employees, look, I've had a role. I'm good at it. I'm a machine. Just leave me to it. Just let me come in the morning. I get my cup of coffee. I power up my computer. I look at my calendar for the day, and I just get to work and start producing my reports, my financials, my meeting scheduling, my communicate. I just go. Asking someone to change that paradigm to say, all right, well, what are the things that you do all the time that you could automate? Add some human checkpoints to make sure it's doing it correctly. But now I want you to be an innovative accountant, or I want you to be a creative software developer so that your time is spent on how do we make wise decisions now that the paperwork, metaphorically speaking, is taken care of. So when I think about scaling that, right, you get one of two things. You get folks that are extremely resistant and they just keep doing it because you would, should, and could get a paycheck for just being awesome at what you've always been doing. Or you get the early adopters that get so excited that they're automating and playing with things and really using AI in different creative ways, but they're doing it in a silo. And that's not scalable either. So I'll have a top performer who becomes an even more efficient sort of top performer, has some really cool auto-formatted emails or PowerPoint simulations or generators. Now there's all kinds of new products that do that. You can do that in AI. You can do workflow definitions even in your chat window now, right? Graphics are available in chat. So there are folks that are getting into that, but they do it their way. And so how do I take really good performers and make that something that's a little bit more culturally acceptable, comfortable, and mainstream? And that's the challenge. And so our consulting team has become not only professionals on how to do projects more successfully, but creating a culture around it's okay to be a little bit tech forward, but don't get too far ahead. Bring people with you. We call that the one step ahead concept. Like, share great ideas. Hey, let's say Claude Cowork. This is great because it helps me automatically fill out dozens of forms that I used to have to do manually. Now I just QA them. They're pre-filled and I can kind of double check them. and then send them on their way. And I can have them all running in parallel, where before it was just me and Serial. Those kind of creative things are great, but they need to be made available almost at a community level. And that's, I think, the future in the near term of a workforce transformation. It's a lot of work. It's going to take some time to get past people's comfort level. So I know that was verbose. Yeah, I mean, my honest answer is we're still in that early experimental phase, and that's true. So having quantitative, reliable metrics, like so an easy B2B metric, I'll just use service levels, is, I'm going to have 99.99% uptime or something like that. That's years and years of having SaaS storage and redundancy and failovers. Like we know, and I can give you a metric, and I can measure that metric, and I can bill you on that metric, or you can penalize me for not making those metrics. In terms of how we're deploying AI-based, we'll say agentic solutions and automations, right now everything is really more of at an adoption and an experimental phase. And so I wouldn't say, 10% of every employee's day needs to be fully automated or something. And that's a ridiculous one. I don't want people to think that it's about replacement. It's absolutely not. It's about augmentation, realizing more of a human, actualizing humans' creativity more rather than focusing on the administrative stuff. But no, I would argue we're not there yet. I am curious to see what type of KPIs or metrics others feel comfortable putting forward in that regard. We are exploring that. We're exploring our own. But many of our things that we try with a couple of brave sort of, I'll call them volunteer squads or teams, those don't always stick, or they become a partial ingredient in something that then gets codified a month later as a simpler process or things like that. So alignment and adoption of certain AI technologies or processes or SOPs, it depends. The funny thing about the question is, how do I get things that the technical team might be doing adopted by executives? At least in our company, it's actually a bi-directional experience. So the expectation is, well, very good. If we expect executives to understand how our marketing team, for example, is automating, make this up, LinkedIn posts and or CRM outreach and tracking and things like that, the expectation is that the team members also understand why an executive is asking for a certain metric or only providing funding or focus on certain priority projects or initiatives. Sometimes we challenge our team members to understand the whys behind why things are on the executive roadmap, for example. And so in like kind, we're fortunate enough that our leadership group in sort of a budget, a younger company, I'll say that, a smaller company, we have, I guess you could call it a luxury, but I would expect it doesn't matter. In this age where information is so readily available, couldn't executives take a moment to share what they expect of their team members, not in terms of numbers and returns, and yes, all of that, but a little bit of the why. And then you have to challenge employees and team members and tech members to understand why some of the decisions are made. Well, and we hear this all the time, right? Philosophically, we're in the trenches, and well, my executive, my director, my VP wouldn't authorize the expense for me to get the enterprise version of the software, so I can't do my job. I mean, if they were down here, they'd know exactly why I did it. But what you don't see is the 15 other concessions they had to make, to get everybody their bonus and or make certain numbers, take care of regulatory requirements, right? They have to do the best they can with limited resources sometimes, and they don't always have the luxury of being able to inform all the team members, especially in large corporate, right? But if people could understand from the tech team, also have the ability to say, in a way, hey, these are some things we're experimenting with, or we've transformed in baby steps this sort of co-work type experience with an AI agentic solution, such that I'm automating now some of my daily job. And that's freed me up to learn more about the business model and the business value, why a project was selected, why that's the number one top project, how I could help them achieve project success by making milestones achieved, rather than I'm just too busy with everything else that I'm doing and that milestones is going to be late. Everybody instead has accountability and understanding up and down the chain of why, as a company, we're all marching towards this particular project with this particular objective. Why making that testing phase kickoff on Monday is so critical. It's like, it's just testing, who cares? I'm not even on the testing team, why do I care? Right? And so we're in an age now where the expectation through AI and better communications is, why not have tools? Why not have communication environments, ecosystems that promote why these things are so important? So people get a chance to understand not only what executives are thinking, but maybe think like an executive. You are an executive of delivering your milestone. You are an executive of, well, I'll use an IT example, a simple one. Testing kickoffs on Monday. Some of the things that go into that, did we have a chance to train the testers? Is the environment set up? I'm on the data team. I'm on the data cleansing team from a legacy system. They don't need me. Well, maybe they do. Maybe what you had to do by last Wednesday, and you didn't know this, is feeding one of their first kickoff day testing scenarios, because it's one of the backbone functions or features of what we're trying to build. But you didn't know that before. Well, now you do. You didn't know why an executive wouldn't fund your new product or tool or project until next quarter, but maybe now you do, because you, as a culture, have access to tools that say, if we can finish this phase 1, we can then fund these phase 3 items. And you can see which ones are on the docket in the project portfolio in the future. And I think giving everyone a chance to invest in the journey that we're all taking together, it's really going to make a difference in achieving more and more milestones, because everybody's got conviction about where we're headed. I hope that answers the question.